Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, Bruchim Abayim. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to those who are joining us live here on this. Welcome to those who are tuning in on the live Chabad.org feed on Facebook. Welcome to those who are going to be watching this as a future date. And Mazel Tov, as we conclude today, Sefer Kedusha, the laws that separate us, that divide us from the rest of the world, that set us apart. And as we move into Haflah, those laws that lift us up and allow us to keep our words holy. And today we celebrate, and we celebrate in order to be able to give us chayis, to give us energy so that we can move on into a new Sefer, a new time, and may we all be inscribed and sealed for a year of Limud HaRambam, learning Rambam with more zest, with more fervor, with more energy, and with more understanding. And today we are honored to have as our guest, I'll start with a little anecdote that they share about the great scholar who's at a restaurant, and he asks the waiter, "Can I please have some butter?" So the waiter tells him, "No." So the scholar says, "Do you know who I am? I am the professor so-and-so." So the waiter responds back, "You say, you know who I am? I'm the guy who has the key, who has the key to the butter." So there are certain scholars and there are people who are engaged in the laws of Kashrus and the laws of Kosher from an academic perspective. But then there are those who have the key to the butter. There are those who are on the ground, who are practically in the world of Kosher, shall we say. And therefore, it is our honor to have as our guest for this Siyum Rambam Rabbi Lebovic, who is literally, if there is a man on this world who's on the ground of day-to-day Kosher lives, it's Rabbi Lebovic. Welcome. Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom. How are you? On my on one of my videos, a kind of promotional video, somehow I came up with the idea that we are like firemen in the firehouse waiting for the call to come in to kosher people's kitchens. And that's actually who we are and what we do.
So tell us for a second. So you are the founder, director of...
I'm the founder.
Go Kosher. Can you tell us just about what 888 Go Kosher is, what you do, and then we'll get into some nitty-gritties.
It is an organization dedicated to helping people go kosher. Whether they're moving or going kosher from zero, which is our main, mission as an organization, and that's what we do. We especially service New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida, and actually by now a lot of people know me. A lot of people call me for questions or practical tips. People that I don't even know. People say hello to me when they come to New York, who I don't necessarily know, but I've interacted with them on some level or other. Vis-a-vis these IYUNim.
How many kitchens would you say you kosher approximately?
I'm definitely responsible for at least 500 a year. So if you do the math, over the last 30 years, I've koshered thousands and thousands of kitchens.
500 a year, that's approximately 10 kitchens every single week.
Yeah, in Pesach time, it gets heavier. So, that is part of the equation. I do have some repeats, so I stopped counting a long time ago, to be honest with you. But I once made a dinner, and I kind of claimed to have kosher 10,000 kitchens by that time. That was about 15 years ago. So this has become my tafkid, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
So I'll tell you, when I first became a shliach close to 20 years ago, so obviously, thank God, the few kitchens and the few things koshering, but I always felt sort of uncomfortable. I don't know, was I doing it correctly? Was I not doing it correctly? So I remember at one time at one of the kinnis hashluchams, they had Merkez mentors, and you could choose a mentor. And I scheduled an appointment with Rabbi Reichik, Olav Hashalom, Rabbi Shimon Reichik from California. And I said, please go through everything I need to know. I'm going to go through every material, every dish, every pot. Just tell me how to make sure I'm doing it all correctly. So, I'm not a handy person, so I burnt myself many, many times. I've broken mezuzah cases by trying to knock them, and I burnt many things and many appliances. So I think that from a practical perspective, I'm going to ask you, Rabbi, if you don't mind, to sort of take us on a journey, both with some anecdotes, some tips, and sort of I'll throw out some materials for you, throw out some dishes, throw out some things, and take us through how you go about koshering them in a manner that doesn't look like you're going to burn the house down, but that gets it kosher and it doesn't burn us.
Okay, we'll start with cutlery. Cutlery you can kosher simply by using a disposable aluminum pan, a brand new one. Boil some water in there about 3/4 high. You can cover it with another one to make it boil a little quicker. Meanwhile, you can stuff up the sink with cold water. So what you're going to do is, and especially if you have help from the people or a helper you bring along, you're going to kasher with hagola, with putting let's say the cutlery into the boiling water and then transferring it into the cold water in the sink and out onto the counter and into another container out of the way so you can continue with more things. I like using, in many cases, a low, aluminum pan because it has a low wall. And because of this, if necessary, you can fit bigger items into it, even if you have to, which is mutar al pi halacha, even if you have to, submerge it from different angles, albeit not at this time, but so that everything gets the proper exposure. So that's as far as pots.
On the stovetop.
Yeah, on the stovetop, on 2 burners, bring the water to a boil, and that's how you're going to kasher your silverware, knives. Don't not to puncture the container by throwing them in point first, but lay them down gently.
Rabbi, I want you to know this whole Zoom was already worth it for me because I've been using pots and I'm using tongs to get out the things and get my hands in there. So I just want you to know, if we stop it right now, this was a very, very
right. But you should know that, what was I going to say? No, you still have to make sure you don't burn yourself. You have to use tongs or gloves to get it out of the boiling water. In other words, you want to keep moving things through the boiling water, not to fill it up and then just leave it there. So yeah, you can use tongs, you can use gloves, which you can, if you can't get the best gloves, you can put them in.
The sikha the entire time?
One more time?
Does it have to be boiling, literally bubbling the whole time, the water?
Yeah, but even small bubbles are okay as well. Yes, yeah. So usually if you put in too much stuff, you might bring the boil down. You'll have to wait for it to come back up. So now you can do the same. You can use that same thing with certain pots. Now, if you have bigger pots, probably the easiest way to kasher them, I think, is instead of boiling up a lot of water, put it on the stovetop itself, on the fire or whatever gets hot. And then with a small torch, do the inside and the outside walls and under the lips. And a libum kal is enough for most things, except maybe frying pans, which should be done with higher level of heat. And if you can't, for some reason, some shittas hold that you can even do with hagola, with boiling water, the frying pans, the machvais, as long as they didn't throw the slab of meat itself into the machvas, into the frying pan, so that it would be, frying in its own juices. But otherwise, if you can assume there was a little saute, there was a little oil, if necessary, you could do also boiling water with the fry, or just putting. But I'm giving you one of 2 ways.
Don't put a steak or a piece of meat into the frying pan and just fry a steak. I guess they don't do that.
So okay, so fine. So then to do it with Aish in that case, do it with fire. So heat it up and then do it with a fire with a small torch on the inside to finish it off. Or you could put it upside down to get it nice and hot, then put it right side up, and then finish it off with a torch. So for those few items, you'll do it with that method. So that's how you do the pots. Some pots that are either big or they're frying pans.
Let's interrupt you for a moment now because you just touched on something, which is frying pans and using maybe non-stick frying pans. So how do you enter a house? You have to sort of make an assessment to figure out what level you're going to do.
I will tell you that to the best of my knowledge, most, even if I'm not mistaken, and I work for the OK sometimes, they allow non-stick. So the notion that no non-stick cannot be kashered, I don't think is entirely accurate to the best of my knowledge. So I do it sometimes. And as furthermore, first of all, I could do it with the fire. The fire goes through, according to some achronim, I rely on a lot of heterim. I'm not Mr. Machmir when it comes to these things, but derech klal. I mean, I can dispense some stringent opinions if that's where I feel people want to go. But otherwise, even something like, it's an expensive item that you have sometimes a cast iron item which is coated with ceramic. It's a Le Creuset or something, a French. These are expensive items. So what you can do is you can heat it up on the fire and then put with a small torch, the fire goes through the ceramic enamel finish. And that's an acceptable way of kashering if necessary. So this way,
you're saying fill up the pot with water, have it boil, and then do
No.
and then.
No,
okay.
no. Now we have already moved on to another subject.
Pot on the fire and just let it get hot by itself without anything in it.
Well, yeah, that's correct. That is correct. Of course, yes. In this case, you don't have to let it get too hot because it can chip. You got to be a little careful. Sometimes it's walking a wire a little bit, and of course, there is a general, the general idea in koshering that if it's going to break it, you can't kosher it. But short of that, there's room. So what we do is sometimes I use a torch to go through that finish, the enamel finish, und das heißt gekashert.
I wanted to address an issue which you mentioned about taking lenient opinions, stringent opinions. I mean, you're dealing with obviously you're dealing with clients from one end of the extreme to the other end of the extreme. Could you talk a little bit about how it is? Where do you see room? And many of us are in these situations. What is sort of the guidelines that you use in your mind? And if you can take us through what's going on in your head.
Well, first of all, I think the worst thing to do is to make damage and leave people with damage. You damage the counter. You damage the panel, that electric computer panel, on top, because you got it too hot. You had the blech on for too long. I've made these mistakes myself. I mean, in some ways they are inevitable, but that's a no-no. So I think at the cost, being too machmir, at the cost of risking too much damage, it has to be some assessment has to be done. Some risk assessment has to be done. But so what's going through my mind is like this. People that are barely Shemer Shabbos, let's say, there's no need to introduce them, in my mind, to the greatest chumras. So I'm not looking for chumras. So if I can kosher for them, for some reason, different people, especially sometimes from different socioeconomic backgrounds or nationality backgrounds, sometimes they're more attached to Tupperware, to plastic. So if I can kosher their hard plastic with boiling water, oftentimes I will. That's just an example. Koshering a dishwasher, I've spoken to the Rabbanim about it. For some people, to get a new dishwasher is a little much to ask. There are those who allow it, and I will go with them in those cases. If I feel that people are
running a dishwasher through it to kosher it.
One more time.
Running a cycle of a dishwasher, a hot cycle.
I think that at least 3 cycles is indicated, and if you can up the temperature, matai, by either putting on the upping the temperature from the water heater down below, downstairs or in the boiler room, or putting in a few hot rocks to bring it up at least somewhat, that's an improvement. Or at least to run it 3 cycles, to be poigim it, and preferably maybe not use it for 24 hours before, and then be poigim it with some bleach or diluted bleach or ammonia down the drain, and the bitzir of the 3 cycles. To my understanding, there's room for that. So that's something that I might do. I don't like to give blanket dispensations of kulis, and I'm not claiming to be a rav.
Hello?
I'm not claiming to be a rav, and I speak to the Rabbanim about these things, and I have. So that's as far as that goes. And then also for some people, they have, let's say, either they're nostalgically connected to a set of Chinaware, or it's very expensive, Rosenthal China or something, and it's taka. It could be a hefsed merumba of thousands of dollars. So if they don't use it for a year, there is a heter to kosher it with agola after a year's time, preferably with agola. Then there's even and today, in a way, there's no excuse for regular everyday crockery. I usually make them get rid of it. But I'm saying in some cases, if it's a cliche, best of my knowledge, there is a heter to do agola gimel pamim even before a year has passed. So, but usually I don't need to avail myself of such a tatum, but sometimes we will. Or if I'm talking to somebody long distance, sometimes I coach people over the phone how to do it. I walk them through it, which is also possible.
Wow. Okay. So
the bottom line is I want to get them up on the horse, running into the golden sunset of keeping a kosher kitchen. And that's the starting point. And they can always upgrade. And I tell them how they're going to upgrade, how they can upgrade. And
for those listening here who are already on a higher level of kosher, so would you tell them that that this is not the optimal ideal?
I think I would generally tell them to speak to a Lubavitcher Rav or their mashpia, because sometimes Lamashal, someone will call me. They bought a set of crockery at a garage sale, a flea market. Could they rely on the heter to kasher some good china that they bought? I don't know. I think not, actually. I mean, it's a question for the mashpia, and I can kind of gently nudge them in a certain direction, and if usually they get the message that I think is the correct answer for them, and if they don't, they can continue in their quest.
Okay, let's move on to different materials. So things like, I don't know, quartz, formica, enamel, corel. Go through materials with us one by one. Take us through
corel, I think you're maybe talking about corel dishes, which may have a mila because they're somewhat like glass. So if they have to be rekashered, they're not so much like china. So that's as far as that goes. Most of the quartz and most of the materials that are used for counters today, you should really go to the CRC. I would direct you to the CRC website, but I think most of them are mutter to kasher. You know, in the old days, formica was a staple, was a basic, and there was talk that you can't kasher it. It's plastic. So talk, according to some, you can't really kasher it, but at the same time, I'm not going to make somebody rip out their whole counter. So we will kasher it with boiling water, maybe hot rocks, and then to be machmir, they can put hot things. This is even for a nash in a way. Put the hot things on top of a towel, trivet, or a cutting board, milchit fleshik, whatever your designation is. So in that way, you know, you have the best of. You don't have to go spend $1 gazillion to get new counters.
Glass stove tops.
Just the best you can do is just to leave them on for a while, each burner.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Self-kashering, yeah. Some people for Pesach, especially for Pesach, with the glass top, will be machmir and put down the washers on top of it, and put the pot on top of a washer to create some kind of a barrier between this possibly somewhat cheres-like material and the and their pot. But of course, you would kasher it first.
Okay, so having
now, if someone could afford, and they can, if it's possible, you know, many people, they just wheel out of the garage a brand new stove, Pesach time. Why not? You know, it's not that expensive, and it's good to do things, you know, on the uppity up.
So having kosher, literally, I don't know if it's tens of thousands of kitchens, and entering people's lives and becoming a part of it.
My ticket to heaven.
No, this is real. This is really something.
Mashiach's coming. There's no heaven.
No, this is something otherworldly. Now, you've obviously connected to people in a real way. Are there any anecdotes, stories, anything that sort of stands out in your mind that you can sort of share?
But
Here on the laws.
I remember an interesting thing. I guess a reward from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I remember once walking out of a Russian woman's home that I had kashered, and I felt that, I don't know, the Eibusher let it be known that he had nachas ruach from it. You know, that's one story. There are people who kasher who are not Shomer Shabbos, and they wanted. I mean, it's not most people when they're ready to kasher, they're already well initiated or somewhat initiated into Yiddishkeit. It's not usually the first thing they go for. Maybe first, not, you know, staying away on the outside, you know, in restaurants and stuff before they fully commit on the inside. But you never know. I once met a guy who he enjoyed davening more than anything. He enjoyed Kashrus. No, I think davening came first, way before. Davening was tefillin, way before he kept kosher. But there are people also that I've met people who wanted to teach their children say no to drugs, that they should be able to say no. We do, you know, a form of a discipline. So, and I remember explaining to a woman once about, you know, what it says in Tanya about things that are connected, Gimel Klubas Hatmeis, our treif, and things that are kosher, Klubas Nega. And it's interesting, like, she said, that doesn't, what do you call it? That doesn't, I don't feel that at all. But she still wanted to keep kosher entirely. But this whole explanation, which to us seems like it's very, it makes a lot of sense. It makes sense. It fits into a lot of other patterns of things. But for her, it did not resonate. She still wanted to keep kosher. So it's taka beyond, it's an neshamazach in many cases,
So Hashem,
so people,
Hashem, many healthy, happy years, so you should be able to continue the world, and ultimately you'll be the Rava Machshir with the big Suda with the Leviathan and the Sharabar, and it'll be under 188 Go Kosher. And with this, we'd like to ask you to please honor us. We can ask the moderator to please put up the very final halacha on the screen, as we're going to now conclude all of Sefer Kedusha as we conclude Hilchei Shechita. Please ask the moderator.
Okay, it's an honor. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
You shouldn't do it with his foot. כדי שלא ינהג בו מנהג ביזיון ויהיו מצוות בזויס עולו. שאין הכובד לעצמן של מצוות, אלא למי שציווה בהן ברוך הוא, והצילנו ממה שיש בחושך, ואורך יסונו נר לישר המעקשים, ואיר להרס נסיבס הישר, וכן הוא אומר, נר לרגלי דברך באיר לנסיבסי, בריך רחמונה דסיון. נגמר ספר חמישי והוא ספר קדושה, ומינם פרוקוב 350, Hilchas Yisure Bia 22 Perokim, Hilchas Machalas Yisure Shiva 10 Perokim, Hilchas Shechita 4 10 Perokim.
Yashakaya, thank you very much. Thank you. Is there any last word you want to get in? Okay.
No, just you can email me questions, and everyone should be proactive and aggressive about getting people to kosher kitchens. If nothing else, Hachana to be a Mashiach.
1888 Go Kosher. Thank you, Rabbi Lebovic. God bless you, and Atzlacha Rava. Thank you. And now, we're now going to begin right away. Sefer Hafla B'Shem Hashem Kelolam. In the name of Hashem, the Master of the universe. Nidves Pidet Seina Hashem. Please accept willingly the words that I issue forth to Mishpatecha Lamdeini, and please Hashem, teach me your halachas. We're going to now study the very first halacha, and the Rambam begins by telling us that Arba Mine Shvuya, saying there are 4 types of oaths that a person can take. And as the Rambam does, he's going to so methodically and categorically give us and explain to us and take it apart for us. There's a Shvuas Bitoy, there's a Shvuas Shav, there's a Shvuas Apikad, there's a Shvuas Ha'edus. And he's going to first go through a Shvuas Bitoy. That is when I say that something happens or something doesn't happen. When a person expresses themselves, to say, I'm going to do something, say, I'm not going to do something. And there are 4 ways that we divide this, Rambam says. 2 things that I will do or won't do, and 2 things in the past. Something I'd say that something did happen or something did not happen. So I say that something will happen. I will do something or I won't do something in the future or in the past. And as the Rambam will do, he will take us through these, and God should give us the strength to go through each of these halachas properly. And now we're going to put up the quiz, one of the enjoyable parts of our Siyum each month, to see how well we listened and paid attention. If we can please ask the moderator to please put up the here we go. Okay. And the quiz begins. When a person gets married, how many other people become forbidden for him to marry forever? 3, 4, 6, or 7? Can Beis Din toivel a ger on Shabbos? Yes, it's a hit for mitzvah. No, and if they do, he'll remain a guy. No, but if they do, the gear will work. And the last of D, if in Zman Habayis, yes, but today, no. What are warning signs that a person has bad yichus and may not be a regular Jew? Is it 2 families who are constantly fighting? A family, a person who's always involved in strife? A person who slanders others of being a mamzer or a slave? A person who is brazen, cruel, and hates people? And, okay. Number 4, what establishes a kohen miyuchas? Is that he can split his fingers well at birchas kohenim? He enjoys eating flour mixed with oil and tends to enjoy eating meat. 2 witnesses say he is a descendant of someone who served in the Mizbeach, or he rarely gets angry and brings blessing to his surrounding. Number 5, if a kosher fish is found inside the belly of a non-kosher fish, is it permitted to eat that kosher fish? It is permitted to eat, but he must be roasted on the fire in the form of kashrus. No chas v'shalom is treif. It is permitted to eat. Or minat Torah is permitted, but the chachamim forbade eating it. Number 6, in which following case would wine not become yain esach? If it was cooked, if yeast was mixed into the wine, if honey was mixed into the wine, or all of the above? Number 7, when would a person not need to table kelim he received from a goy? It's a wooden vessel. If he borrowed it from a goy but didn't purchase it, if the vessel's earthenware, and all of the above. Number 8, if a knife fell from a shelf and it slaughtered an animal, is the shechita kosher? Yes, if all 5 conditions were met, it's kosher. No, it's not. If it is kosher for eating, but it would be not valid for a carbon, or it is kosher for eating, and even for a carbon if the owner had the correct intention. Number 9, if someone shechs a mother cow and the child on the same day, or if someone took the mother bird away from the children and shechted it, what is the halacha? A, the person receives lashes and the meat is forbidden to eat. B, the person receives lashes but the meat is permitted to eat. C, in the case of the mother and the baby cow, the meat is forbidden, and in the case of the mother bird, the meat is permitted. Or the other way around, in the case of the mother and the baby cow, the meat is permitted, and in the case of the mother bird, the meat is forbidden. And lastly, for kisu yadam, when we cover the blood, may one use metal dust? A, all metal, if ground into powder, are a valid form of dust for covering the blood. B, no metals are valid for covering the blood. C, gold is permitted and all others are forbidden. Gold is, yes. And D, gold, silver, and copper, if ground into dust, are valid forms of covering the blood. Okay. And now we are going to go through the answers. So we can ask the moderator to please take down the test, the quiz, and we are going to go through the answers. Okay. The answer, if you remember, when you marry somebody, how many he'll become forbidden to marry? 6. Can you, the Bezdin, immerse a ger, create a conversion on Shabbos? No, they shouldn't, but if they do, the conversion will be valid. What are the warning signs that a person has bad yichus? It was all the above. People are fighting, involved in strife, they blame others, they claim others our moms are a slave, and they're brazen, cruel, and they hate people. What is a kohen miyuchas? An established kohen? That's if 2 witnesses say that he's a descendant of someone who served on the mizbeach. If a kosher fish is found inside the belly of a non-kosher fish, you can eat it because it swallowed it. In which of the following cases did we say it's not yayin nesach? Well, it was all the above. If it's cooked, if it has yeast or wine or honey mixed into it, then it's not yayin nesach. When would a person not need to toivel kalim that he got from a goy? It was again all the above. If it's a wooden vessel, if he borrowed it and didn't purchase it, or if it was earthenware. If a knife falls down and it slaughters an animal, well, it's a kosher shechita. Number 9, if someone shechts a mother cow and on the same day, or a mother bird and the bird on the same day, what is the halacha? The halacha is that the person receives lashes, but the meat is permitted to eat. And lastly, for kisi adam, may one use metal dust? The answer is gold dust is permitted and all others are prohibited. And this concludes today's Siyum Rambam. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rabbi Lebovic, again, for sharing your practical advice on Kashrus with us. And aksivach semateva agutke ben shiur to each and every one of us. Thank you very much.